Hey, hey. Okay, everybody, set in the mood. Set in the mood. We found the music. We found what makes work. Everyone who's been here before, you know how it goes. But everybody, I am so excited to be here today for all things ThumbstopLive. If this is your first time here, welcome to the party, y'all. I'm live every Monday to Friday from 11 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern. And we have so many of your freaking favorite people joining us to chat about not only the business side, but also bringing in the mindset and how they approach their work at the end of the day. Today is going to be a super fun episode. So no matter where you're dialing in from, I know you're probably on the YouTube Live side, the LinkedIn side, our Instagram family is really growing, and of course, the Twitter and X side. It's going to be a fun one. We have Taylor Holiday, who's going to be joining us in a little bit of time, probably like an hour or so. But to kick us off, I'm so excited to have this guy, man. This is going to be so much fun. We have Connor from Ridge who's going to be joining us, and I get to get a chance to get a peek into his brain. It's going to be incredible, everybody. So without further ado, would love to welcome Connor to the stage.
And the crowd roars. What's up, Evan?
Woo! Connor, what is up, my man? It's so good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you too, man. Good to see you too. This is a great way to start the week. 9 a.m. Monday morning for me.
You're a beast. Where are you based out of again?
So I'm in Salt Lake City currently, but on Friday this week, I'll be driving out to Los Angeles. I'll be an LA resident by this weekend.
This is big time. What the heck?
Yeah. This is the scoop too. I think this is the first time I'm talking about it. Yeah. No, I'm from LA. I've been in Salt Lake for almost 3 years. So making the move back Friday. So that answer where I'm based will change very soon.
That's so funny. I was gonna say, like, it's such different vibes. Like, are you ready for it? But if it's in your heart and it's like, that's where I'm from, like, you're good. It's gonna be such a homecoming at that point.
Yeah. Well, you know what I've been working through is like the logistics of moving. Have you done like a cross state lines move?
No, I haven't. Fingers crossed. I don't have to either. But
yeah. No, they're fun. That's why, like, typically I have a different background. I have movers are coming today, so I have like my normal desk all packed up, and I got I'm on a plastic folding table right now because this is stupid. Nobody really cares, but movers coming today, Monday. I don't leave until Friday, so I have basically 3.5 work days. So I've got this plastic table set up in like an otherwise like barren office. And then when I leave, I'll just throw this away. It was like $40 on Amazon. And it's like, you have to create a disposable office for your last couple of days.
So this might be TMI, but I'm wondering about like the bed situation. Is it just like bed on the ground? That's all you have?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
At this point,
bed on the ground. Yeah. Yeah. And then I've been talking about the bed logistics a lot because do I have the movers take it today and get like a cheap twin mattress for a couple nights? Or do I leave the king bed here and then get a new one in LA? It's like this is what's been occupying my time as of late. I've got Q4 to worry about, and I'm here worried about how I'm gonna sleep in Los Angeles.
This is real life stuff. I remember when my wife and I moved into our new place, the first thing that I bought, my priorities clearly weren't in order. But I was like, yo, I got to get a TV. Like, it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Like, I'm going to go pick up a TV. So the very first thing we had was just this big ass TV sitting in our living room. She's like, what the hell are you doing?
That's
like,
awesome.
We need everything else. And it's like, I'm sorry. Priorities.
You did the meme. You had like the camp folding chair and just the TV.
That's big facts. Yeah, 100%. Oh, man. Connor, well, it's an exciting move coming up. There's so much that I want to get into with you. But I think to start us off, for anyone who might not be familiar with you, I don't know how, but for the ones who might not be, can we just start with a quick tell us about yourself, a little bit of professional, some of the personal you shared, anything else that you would be willing to share? We'll take it from there.
Totally. Yeah. Name's Connor MacDonald. I've been the chief marketing officer at Ridge for almost 9 years. Yeah, 8-9 years. When I joined Ridge, they'd just done about like $6 million, and this year we'll do, close to 200. So I've been around for quite a bit of growth, and what do I, spend my time, at Ridge. What does CMO mean at Ridge? I oversee e-com, brand creative, paid media, and like owned marketing.
That is huge, man. That is huge. Okay, so one of the things that I'm always curious about is like, you've been with Ridge for 9 years. I didn't actually realize it was this long. And then when you look back earlier in your career, did you have like a mental map of where you knew you wanted to land in this process? You're like, yep, D2C brand, I'm gonna be able to rise up the ranks and get to that level and absolutely crush. or what was your mindset like earlier in your career?
No, yeah, okay. So we could dive into a little bit more of the story, because I round a bit when I say CMO for 9 years. What it is Sean's now the CEO, and I met at an agency in Los Angeles in 2016, at like kind of early mid 2016. And this was early innings of D2C marketing. And this agency would take anybody who was selling anything online. And so, and like the agency model at that, for them at that point was like, you get a bunch of people, you pay them very little money. My first salary was $30,000 in 2016. And California just after that made that like illegal. Cause it's like, because if you work a second over 40 hours a week, you were just making your dollar per hour is like nothing. So yeah, we made no money and we had a ton of clients. And then like from an organization perspective, the quality of the work was not very good. So Sean was there a bit longer than I was. I was there like 6 months. And then him and I both decided, hey, we can probably start our own agency. Like there's nobody really providing us with how to, provide the service. Like we are the ones figuring it out. We were doing a lot of creative stuff at the time. I was really excited about a lot of like random little trends in marketing. So I felt like I was bringing new ideas to the agency and not necessarily benefiting from like any sort of institutional knowledge. So Sean and I leave, we start an agency. Ridge is one of our first clients at that point. So that's really, and that's been like over 9 years now of like that original client agency relationship. And it was like that for technically like 1.5 years, 2 years. The agency did in its second year build a couple $1 million. But it was really clear Ridge had far more runway. It was like Ridge doubled twice. So they'd gone from 6 to 12 to 20 or something. And it was really clear that there was a lot more runway there. And the second thing is we built out basically all of their resources. We had some customer service people on the team. We had a supply chain manager. We were not building a good agency either, as what you could tell. It was like extremely bespoke. It was like a little messy, but it was super fun. I mean, it was really great. And the quality of the work was far superior to like what the previous agency had been able to provide on average. So we were happy with the way it was trending, but got the opportunity to go internal at Ridge. Sean became COO at the time. I became CMO. So that's when we officially took, executive titles. And we've just been hitting the ground. We hit the ground running from there, basically. I guess we hit the ground running before that. It's been a big couple years since.
I love it, man. It's incredible. One of the things I want to double click on is when I talk to a lot of folks, one of the main things that they'll talk about is like, you want to make sure that you're like finding a company that solves the right problem, or you want to find something that's like truly available to the masses. I actually want to talk about like your relationship with Sean a little bit. So it's just like, so early on in that process, did you guys know it was like a fit where it's like we click, like we think about the stuff the same way, we know it's going to work, or was it a little bit combative up front? What did it look like?
No, Sean and I are like family. Like, yeah. Sean and I mean, so we started the business together, then we lived together for 4 years.
Damn.
We talk basically every day for about an hour on the phone. We spend a lot of time together. And it's one of the reasons we work so well together, and like the projects or clients or Ridge or whatever it is that we work on, like end up being not only fun to work on, but have been, successful to some degree.
And then when you were kicking off that agency, I guess who I'm speaking to are like a lot of folks who are just trying to find their way. They might be at an agency themselves and trying to figure out what's next, whether it's brand side or kick off their own thing. So when you and Sean like had that initial dialogue where you're like, yo, like, should we just do this ourselves? In your mind, was there anything you were worried about? We're like, we're friends. Like, is this going to go well? Or is there anything like that you might be able to share?
There's nothing like interpersonally that I was concerned about. The couple things that I'll say. So one, and because I think this was an extremely important lesson for me to learn really early. But let me talk. I talked with McCoy, the CMO at Portland Leather Goods, on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he said something like, the world was built by people no smarter than you and I. I was like, that's a very eloquent way of saying that's totally true. I think people can hear it and believe it, but I don't think a lot of people like really absorb that information or like internalize it. And one of the most important things about the agency, and it sounds like I'm like talking shit a little bit. I'm really not. Like it was really like, it was a quality business. They're still around today. Like they are extremely good at what they do in many ways. But I really realized early on, I was like, oh, I was expecting coming out of college, it was basically my first job out of college, to enter a workforce and be kind of blown away by like the knowledge and level of execution. I was like, yeah, not really. Like I'm providing a lot of value here. I've been here like 30 days. So that realization where it was like, oh, there's no secret sauce. These people aren't so much smarter than you, so much more experienced than you. It's also industry related to some degree. I also say 2016 D2C was in its nascent stages. Literally nobody had been buying meta ads for that long, Facebook ads at the time, right? Like there was no 50-year experience, like guys having done it for decades. It was like everybody's just kind of figuring it out. Everybody's watching the same YouTube videos or they're in the same Facebook groups or whatever, right? So it's a combination of those two things. Being in an industry that had such like that had skills you could acquire that were still in such a nascent stage was extremely valuable. And then learning really early on that there was like no secret sauce, that like I was basically just as competent and could put in the hard work to like create something new. So those were all things that like gave me some conviction and like, yeah, we could do this. And then the second one was there was literally no risk. Like I said, I was making $30,000 a year. I'm like, I think I could get a job like this again if I needed. So I had no downside. I mean, even I was 22. I was on my parents' health insurance still with like Obamacare. I was like, I have no stress here. Like the worst case scenario is not bad. So between those two things, it was like it made it a no-brainer to kind of strike out on our own a little bit.
I love it, man. I always think back to Space Jam and the secret sauce that they're handing around to everybody. And it's like when you realize that it doesn't actually exist, it's so empowering and all the superpowers you get from that. So it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense.
And
but this go ahead.
I was gonna say, I've talked to other people who like also acknowledge that early learning experience was really valuable. Because I do think if I'd like, I went to UC Santa Cruz, so I went to school in the Bay Area, and I was applying for jobs at like, I really wanted to work at Twitter at the time or Facebook or Google or something like that. Yeah. If I had gone there, I think those organizations were truly, there was more like institutional knowledge there. Like it wouldn't have felt like starting a business was so accessible because they were more buttoned up and they were publicly traded companies and they had all these things going for them. So yeah, anyway, I've heard from a number of other entrepreneurs that like that moment of realizing that like you can do it as well is extremely influential.
Yeah, man. Have you had this entrepreneurial bug and spirit in you forever, or what's it been like?
No, I also wouldn't say that's the case. I think I enjoy working hard. I had this thought the other day. Like I played a lot of basketball growing up. And like, we just want to, and I'm not like, I don't know, I'm 6'1", but like, I'm not particularly athletic, could not jump high, like definitely did not have a lot of advantages from like an athletic perspective. But I remember my coach saying, like, he told the team, he was like, if Connor gets 110% of what he's been given, that's what he's getting now. And I think just naturally, I try to like strive for that in most of the things that I do. So whether if I had gone to a Twitter or like some more established like Bay Area company, that I would have succeeded in that, but it would have looked completely different. I would have learned what does it take to succeed in a more corporate environment, and I think I would have gone down that path. And then just the path that I was given and like the constraints or scenarios that I was like put in place to like maximize the value of ended up being a more entrepreneurial one. So I don't think it's like, I think if I were to run my life back 100 times, I'm definitely not an entrepreneur in every one.
Man, this is so interesting. So I want to double click there, but I want to talk about basketball first. So, and I think it leads into something I'm curious about. So I played competitively up until my first year of college. Then I had the same realization. I'm 6 feet on a good day. I'm skinny as hell. I'm not going to be able to turn anything into this. But one of the pieces I am curious to get your opinion about is the idea and the advice that our generation will typically get of like, yo, follow your passion, find your passion, work in your passion. Because I know for me, one of the interesting things is like when I stopped playing basketball, it would have been something that I said I was passionate about. I'll share more thoughts in a second, but to pause, I'm curious, like, is that advice that resonates you when it comes to following your passion, and you'd recommend that to people?
No, also not really. Or like I heard it articulated really well recently. It was with an interview of the author of the 48 Laws of Power.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about a lot of people like entering their 30s or mid 30s and like realizing that they're not fulfilled in life, and like how do they get there? And one of the things he focuses on is just like feasibility or like reasonability, where it's like, look, I'm 31 now. If I were unhappy with what I was doing, it would be unreasonable for me to say, hey, I'm really passionate about playing guitar, so I'm gonna start a band. It's like, okay, yeah, no, that doesn't quite work. So what he talks about, and like what I think is the ideal scenario for someone going into or coming out of college or something like that, is you have to find the balance of something that is fulfilling, but you can also make money with, right? Just from a feasibility perspective, I like solving problems, and I'm very lucky in that, because like there are a lot of people that will employ you to in order to solve problems. But if you're passionate about being creative, it's like, hey, do you want to be an artist, or do you want to try to go support artists or join the industry or something like that? So I just think it's important to remember your passion from a perspective of finding fulfillment, but at the same time, like it is unreasonable to think you'll be able to take that path exclusively. Like you'll have to make compromises, and you'll have to find some sort of balance between, financially supporting yourself and a family and things like that over the course of your life.
I've heard it described as like a couple columns. Like in column number 1, it becomes, what are you good at? And then in column number 2, it's like, what can you get paid at? And then it's like trying to find or paid for. And like, what can you start to connect basically the tissue between the two? But for you, why I want to ask about like, and tie it to the basketball piece, because like for me, I think passion and that word gets tied to a lot of either tangible things or domains. So if you asked me as a kid, I would be like, what are you passionate about? I'm passionate about basketball. Like I'm letting this thing fly. For sure. But one of the really interesting things is like, for me personally, when I stopped playing, it's kind of like, oh, damn, like, who am I? Like, what comes with this and everything of those questions. And I think what I realized over time was like passion for me turned into, okay, what about basketball? It was the competitive environments. It was working together as a team. It was solving problems and getting better every day. And I was like, this is kind of empowering. Like I can take these things and ultimately run with it. And no matter what I do. But I'm curious if you've had similar experiences. Like I'm wondering if like the passion statement for you is like hard work in a sense. It's like, I enjoy that so much.
No, and that's what I mean by like, trying to extract 110% of like what you're given. Like that phrase has always stuck with me, because I think like I find that fulfilling. Like I think if you put me in different domains, that is more or less like how I'll naturally track. Like I was speaking with someone recently, and they were saying that they loved new skill development. This woman's like constantly doing like new classes, and she's developing new passions and interests and things like that. I'm like, yeah, I basically I zone in. Like I have been working on Bridge for 9 years now. I was like it just, depending on what it is, I am like zeroing in on that thing for long periods of time. And I think those are an example of like two very different tracks, where it's like, oh, she's enjoying the like acquisition of new skills and having all these unique experiences. And what I naturally gravitate towards is like trying to develop mastery in something. And mastery is such a pretentious word to use there, because I'm like, like I've been learning piano this year, and like, I'm not going to become a master in piano, but like just trending in that direction. I'm not like, oh, I'm going to pick up the piano and then the guitar and then, the flute or whatever. Like I am like, this is the thing. And now I'm going to spend a lot of time working on it. I'll give you one more example, just because we're kind of shooting the shit here a little bit. I was in a band in high school. I quit basketball my senior year to be in a band. Because I was like, this is way sicker.
Real life Troy Bolton, man. Real life Troy Bolton.
And even like, so I grew up in like Southern LA County. Like the way that I was interested in music was like obsessive. Like I would like, there were all these local bands, and like bands would like share members, and they'd play at venues, and they'd release small EPs together over here, and then they'd release a full length album over here with like a different set of people. And I was like, who is it? is it Charlie Day with the meme in front of like the red strings on the board from It's Always Sunny? I'm getting a lot of meme references in here, but like that's basically how I do things. It's like, I'm into music now. I'm really into music. So then you end up and that's what I find fulfilling. That's like what I'm passionate about. That is something that when I'm passionate about something, that's the sort of approach that I'll apply to it. I'll adjust that a little bit, because you can't just put me in any domain and I'm like, oh my God, this is fun because I can geek out on it. Like it only applies to, certain domains, but they are transferable skills. And that's what you were getting at. And I do think that's kind of an under-discussed aspect.
Love it, man. There's two things that come to mind for me. Number one, it's like the pipeline of some version of musical expertise to D2C marketer is incredible. So I was talking to like Andrew Foxwell. This guy was in a freestyle hip hop group in college.
Oh my God.
David Herman, A&R, Philip Jackson, he was in a traveling band with his wife. Like Jess Bachman was an underground DJ on the one.
Doesn't surprise me. That tracks. That tracks.
So it's just like the pipeline is incredible. I'm like, holy crap, there's something here. There's something here for sure.
Yeah. So I've had that as well. Not music for sure. I got a film degree also. And I just think that there's a commonality. The other example that I've used before is, I think he's now the head of growth at Dr. Squatch. Siraj had like some sort of like weird literature background, like creative writing major from NYU or something. And then, so I do think D2C is well suited for people who are creative in some capacity, and then like somewhat analytical. And I think those two skills together. Oh, like even McCoy, who was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, wedding photographer. So like it's just this industry where you're forced to be creative, but like you have access to so much data that if you are also analytical, like you just have a lot of the skills needed to be, productive.
It's such a good point too, because even that creative element, when you talk about solving problems, it's like, it's still a creative outlet. Like you get to solve it creatively in a sense, right?
Yes. Yeah. 1000%.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm wondering about you, Connor, is like, so describing when you find something, you fixate and go deep and you're like, I will get better at this thing. So I'm always curious because I am this type of personality. I call myself like an all or nothing type of person or a 0 to 1 type of person, and not in the traditional sense where it's like, I either care or I don't care. And I'm like trying to find balance in this process. So I'm curious in your end, like when you find something that becomes the new obsession, are you able to juggle everything at once, or does it really become the fixation at that point?
Yeah. Like so I've just had this conversation recently because this year, like, I don't know, I've been exercising more. So I've been spending more time at the gym. I've been learning the piano. I've been working a lot. Bench press near all-time highs,
Let's go. Come on.
But I was just talking about how, I don't know, it's the first year in a long time where I just felt my time was extremely finite. I was like, if I want to do this thing, it is a direct trade-off of this other thing. And like, in many ways, I feel like I'm at max capacity where I'm like, yeah, I can't take on another like thing that I'm going to be passionate about. Cause I also really don't I find it like unfulfilling, like half-assing something, right? Or like, maybe that's not even the right word, because it's just like not being able to commit to something. If something's like, in that in-between stage, I'm just like, I find it unfulfilling. Like I'll say, I would love to be reading more. And I've started a bunch of books this year and I like barely ever finish any books. And the part of me is like, look, if you're going to read, like make the time and do it and like go deep on this book and do this thing. And it just ends up falling into this bucket of like, it is playing second fiddle to what the other things that I'm pursuing at the time. And I'd almost rather be more ruthless about prioritizing my time.
So the analogy I use in this case, let me know if you have a different opinion here. And honestly, mine is evolving too. But I equate my life to different light bulbs. So it's like one is career, one is family relationships, friends, partner, mental health, physical health. And that list is going to continue for whoever you might be. And I've kind of realized it's impossible to light all of those things up like to its entirety at any given time. Totally. So it becomes a question of energy distribution at that point. And like, that's what you've talked about here. I'm wondering, when you say ruthless, have you created systems that allow you to distribute your energy in a way that like you're proud of, essentially?
Systems definitely not the right word. That makes it sound like there's more of a science to it. No, for me, it's just been developing the routines and the habits, right? Like it is just a matter of showing up every day and going to the gym or playing the piano or, there's probably more systems related to work. That's obviously where I spend that's the lion's share of where my time goes. So there's systems involved in that, like whether it's short, medium, or long-term projects, things like that. So maybe systems within passions, but like, I don't have like a good calendar or I'm not like journaling or anything like that.
I got you. No, that makes a ton of sense. And I am wondering now, I'm just wondering, like, lion's share of time goes to work, but I'm assuming that your role has changed a ton and like what your day-to-day looks like over time, which I do want to talk about. But the thing that I am curious about here is, like, in your world where it's evolved, how are you like energy wise, like able to say what's important and what's not these days? That's something that you specifically should tackle versus like someone else should be able to tackle.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good question. I'll take a step back quickly. Because I do think, and there's probably a lot, anybody who's been at a brand for 9 years and has been around for like a 15 or 20x probably has similar experiences, but my role has changed significantly. Where 2017, I'm running all the ads, right? Like I'm editing the images we use for ads. I'm editing videos. I'm like, updating the website. It was like literally like truly, individual contributor. The entire team was like a handful of people at this point. And then it wasn't until probably 2020 where we started making like serious hires and I had to begin to transition towards like manager. We start hiring media buyers and we're also expanding quite a bit at this point, whether it's between markets and things like that. Just as the business becomes more complex and we scale, I obviously have to like reduce my individual impact at like all the different parts of the business. Now, then there was a period of time where I think I built too horizontal of a team where like I was dealing with like a relatively wide organization, trying to accomplish all these things. And in many aspects, like it totally worked. But I wasn't delegating, and this is where I'm going to finally start answering your question. I wasn't delegating like the strategy component enough. We had a lot of like doers, and then I was still probably consuming too much of like the strategic role of like, hey, this is exactly what we need done. These are the metrics we need to look at. This is what you need to do now. Report back to me in a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever. Now where we're at is we have just a more well-rounded organization, right? Like I have essentially VP level people in the own marketing role, the e-com role, the creative role, and the paid media role. Like those are the four. And now I'm really just able to delegate projects that are related to much higher level tasks. Like, hey, we need to focus on channel diversification. So there's measurement is a component of that. There's budget allocations. There's, the frequency with which we're measuring against projections or year over year, things like that. And that's a whole system to build. And now I'm not building the system. I'm just laying out the objective of like, this is what we need to do. And now we have like real great leaders in place who are like then building those systems. And then they have much smaller, but like horizontal teams under them that are then executing that on a day-to-day basis. And that was like that's been the larger shift. Now, I guess your question was, how do I decide what to focus on?
Yes.
And that just comes down to, okay. So that obviously comes down to like, there is a subjective decision to make as to what's going to be most impactful for the business, whether that's from like a top line or bottom line or brand perspective or something like that. So I guess that's the crux of the question is like, how am I identifying the most impactful stuff? Because we could do anything, especially at Ridge. Like we've been so aggressive with product development. Like we've sold socks, we've sold water bottles, we're selling carry-ons now. Like I talked to a merchandiser at one point. She was like, "You guys sell what?" Like I told her, I was like, "Yeah, we do." I was like, "We do luggage, wedding bands, wallets, and phone cases." And she was like, "Excuse me?" Like the traditional merchandiser would kind of balk at that. And that's just to say how wide of a spectrum we're willing to experiment on. So then it comes down to, well, we need to be picking our spots. And I try to be pretty selective. And what I say, and this is more from like a brand strategy perspective, but I think Ridge has a certain set of inherent attributes that lend themselves better to like certain paths. So I heard this described really well recently. We had Ariana, who's the CEO of Half Days, which is a really cool women's I don't know, it wouldn't be considered snowboarding clothes, but like they sell like stuff that you would ski in or whatever. And they have this focus on community. And the reason is she says the mission of their company is to like, I'm not going to get it quite right, but it's like to bring women out into nature. So a big part of their strategy is like building community. They host like hundreds of events a year. They bring out thousands of people. They create content. They have a good time. It's like really, really cool. That is like Half Days has an inherent set of attributes that lend themselves best to that community building. And she said on our podcast, and I could not agree more, because some people will be like, oh, community works, we should do community. And you can very easily make missteps if you're not accounting for who you are as a brand. So when I'm trying to prioritize things for Ridge, I'm trying to think about who we are and what does that lend itself best to from a brand development standpoint. And frankly, I don't think community in the way that Half Days does it is right for us. I don't think guys want to, I don't think wallets are going to bring people together in the same way that like wearing, cool parkas and skiing might for, a group of women. So there's a very long-winded way of like maybe answering your question.
I appreciate all the context. Honestly, it's super helpful. One of the things I'll call out is like you on the other side hosting your podcast. It's pretty cool to get to talk to so many different people too, right? Sure. Just like get their experiences and expertise. Like it's so interesting because all of this that goes into your mind for that prioritization sometimes like happens in seconds. Where you're like, this is what's important right now. Whereas like there are larger swings that take a little bit more time in planning. But like that's why it's so interesting to see the wheels turn of how that decision making comes to life.
Yeah, like so this is kind of meta because it goes back to like industry content and like ThumbstopLive, right? Because I think I'm gonna try. The podcast has been fantastic, and I feel like I've hit like critical mass to some degree where like we've had someone on to talk about a lot of stuff, and like now I can reference Ariana and McCoy, and we've had Jared on, who's like the executive vice president at Nectar, and he's like just a savage like paid media and growth marketer. So I've got all these like very unique perspectives to pull from, but I'd like to even increase that surface area more. I was just going through last night. I was going through like newsletters that I was like catching up on, and I don't even know when I subscribed to this one, but they were talking about Audible's podcasting strategy, and it wasn't even a long thing. It was like a blur. It was like maybe 180 characters or something. And I was like, oh, that actually, there's a way that we can apply this strategy to like this very particular part of our business. I slacked the team. Like, I think I was like, we'll have to plan 2026, but like, I think there's something here. So it's just funny the way that works.
I love that, man. I love that so much. I think one of the big things that I want to double click into is what you were talking about was like your transition from the individual contributor to managing the team to now like leading as an executive in that process. And what I'm curious about is like, was one of those jumps like the hardest out of the three? And it's like, how did you get through it then?
You said individual contributor to manager to executive?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like we really built the company beneath us, right? So like I never felt like I went from manager to exec. Like, I don't know. I always kind of held the CMO role. So that one's a little bit different. Functionally, that's what's happening. So like, I agree with the premise. Individual contractor to manager, significantly harder, I think. Like really, that's the 0 to 1. Like in my opinion, manager to executive is almost just a different form of management. That's why it's like 1 to 2 or 3 or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, truly taking hands off the wheel and figuring out how to align a number of different people to like all be marching in the same direction, I think was more of an adjustment. Oh, the other thing that I'll say is like, as an executive, typically you get the ability to hire extremely talented senior managers beneath you, and they're frankly just better in many ways. So it's like, oh yeah, like a lot of a lot of my like growth as a, or I should put quotes around executive, growth as an executive is just being able to hire extremely talented people that come in and improve the system. So all of a sudden you're in this very advantageous position of, you get to hire the extremely talented people to build the systems to complete the work, instead of, from a manager perspective, like that's you're like I said earlier, like I was encompassing more of that.
Yeah. Okay. So now a follow-up that I have on this one is like, as an individual contributor, like you're in the weeds every day, like the grind at that point. You're young, you're making it happen, it comes to life. As a manager, there's a little bit more curation of the work, but it feels like when you talked about that horizontal org, you still hold a lot of the strategy and you visit a lot of like, how does this actually go? I share my opinions. And then once you get to the leader or leadership level, and it's again, not by title, but what we're talking about here, it's more of like full delegation almost. And it's like, let's talk about it in a week or so. What I am curious about, like with hard work being such like a core pillar, it's like, I'm willing to figure this out at this point. Was it hard to like step back and say like, hey, you got this, like come back to me in a week?
Dude, you nailed it. Yeah, it's actively difficult is what it is. It's not past tense hard. Yeah, for sure, dude. I love like being in it. So yeah, still a balance I'm trying to strike every day.
So with that, something that we've been talking about is like the idea of like, you're in the gym a lot now, like starting to onboard piano and like practicing different things.
Yeah.
So with those things, it's like one of the concepts I've heard a lot of people, as I've been talking to, reference is the idea of seasons of life. You go through different seasons at different points. And something that I'm personally trying to pick up on is like, can you identify ahead of time when you're changing seasons, or does it like smack you in your face and like you have no choice in this process?
Yeah, so I love this question. And this is actually something I discussed with my friend that I was talking about earlier, who like loves skill acquisition. I was like, yeah, how do you then give up the skill? I was like confused. She was like, yeah, I think about it. And she didn't say seasons, but like, yeah, phases or eras or whatever. Right. And it's like, and it sounds like she defines them in relatively short times. Like she'll do a 9-week surfing class, and then she'll do a 9-week whatever. And it's like, from my perspective, it sounds like she is planning them ahead of time. Like, hey, I'm doing surfing now for the next couple of weeks, and that means I'm no longer doing ballet or whatever. I think mine's probably like slower phases in and out, like much blurrier lines where something will sneak up on me and I'll be like, oh yeah, like this is now, I'm now really into this, and I wasn't quite expecting it. So I think that's, I think all people are different, but that's more or less the way it's worked for me. And then the other thing I'll say is my seasons are much longer. Like I'm probably working on year-long, 2-year-long seasons. Ridge is a 9-year-long season. So yeah, I think those are some of like the variables that go into it.
So this is exactly what I actually want to ask you about, speaking about the time frames here. So are you the type of person who will sit down at the beginning of the year and like set your goals out? By the end of the year, this is what I want to accomplish. It bakes into quarters, bakes into weeks, so on and so forth. Or is it more like vibe it out? And I'm speaking more to the personal side than anything, because I believe the business is typically structured.
Yeah. No. No. The way my life works is there are fewer focuses, and then frankly it's like relatively unstructured other than that. Like especially going into it, when I say it's even the way that the interests develop, right? It's like I say like I'm kind of, another thing is one of the reasons I spend so much time on Twitter. I love having like that wide surface area of like new information, where it's like really at any point something might like surface and I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting, and then I'll dive in a little bit more there, and then 6 weeks later I realize like I'm really into this thing. So it is just inherently like blurrier and softer and like more malleable of like a system. The only thing that keeps it like somewhat together is the focus piece of it, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, this is now a thing that and I don't even decide it. I'm like, maybe I do decide it. I'm like, this is a good thing. I should keep this up. And then it's a 9-month interest. It's a 12-month, 18-month interest.
It's so
like,
interesting.
Oh, I'll give you another one. Sorry to go back to basketball. Also, do we have to stop at some point? When's Taylor coming on?
Taylor's coming on at 12 my time, so 10 your time. So we have time.
All right, because another interest, and this is real, like not particularly productive, but going back to the basketball point, I've become obsessed with the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz, absolute worst team in the league. Like literally like the 30th team last year. I have been listening to a daily podcast about the Utah Jazz. And I mean, you follow it, dude. It's the off season. Like they haven't played a game in like 4 months. And I'm listening to like hours of content every week. And it's just obsessive. And like, and that is like, and I love it. And I'm like, I'm going, and so they've been an interest now for, let's call it like 7 months. And now the season's starting next week. And I'm like, I'm super stoked. I'm like, this is a thing. And it will for sure at least be like an 18-month deep interest. So that was not a plan. I was like,
funny.
I was like, maybe I'll become more of like a fan of a basketball team this year, like really follow along. And I was like, maybe it'll be the Lakers, maybe it'll be the Jazz. And I found this, it's really, for me, it was like finding this daily podcast where I'm like, oh, this is that little bit of information I can consume every day. Take my dog for a walk around the block, plug it in, and I'm hearing about, the second round pick that we're like super excited about or whatever.
The Ace Bailey drama must have been huge on there. Like the Ace Bailey gave you content for like 3 weeks at that point.
Yeah. The other thing that's fascinating about the Jazz is, because this is actually more broadly applicable, but like the way NBA teams, any sports team have to build an organization and they have to be thinking over multi-year periods is super interesting. And they're like, one of the issues with the Jazz is they knew they were going to be bad like 3 years ago when they traded away their best players. They like deconstructed the team, but they didn't commit to being bad enough. So they've spent the last 2 years being like, last year they were horrendous and like purposefully. But the 2 years before that, they kind of like dilly-dallied in the middle. And they were like, they weren't getting good draft picks, but they weren't making the playoffs. So now they are like resetting the org and they're like, we're going to be good in 2030. And like, I just think it's super cool. There's like, so there's a lot of business aspects to it and like parallels to like, there are many parallels to like building a team or anything else.
There's certain owner GMs that I find super fascinating. So I'm in Toronto, so Masai Ujiri was someone like I'd follow quite a bit in the decision-making process because he was someone who blended like allowing business and emotion to come together, which isn't always the case. But Danny is someone similar, right? Like Danny is freaking incredible. Like I'm so curious to know how like that BYU for everyone who's listening in now we're deep in it, but like the BYU pipeline of like agent.
Dude, 100%. It starts early. Like I like that's where it gets like a little more tinfoil hat, but you've got this extremely well-funded Utah prep school now, like feeding people into BYU. It's fascinating. I mean, these are not only are they billion-dollar organizations, but also if the Utah Jazz become really good, it will change the city of Salt Lake. And like I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder, who just won the championship, will have had a huge economic impact on the city of Oklahoma City. And so there's potentially so much impact.
Yeah, man.
And that's just cool to like be a part of.
That's one of the really cool things about being in Canada. And like, we only have the Raptors. So it's like in 2019 when they won, like 1.4 million people in the freaking streets, like everyone coming in from all different parts of Canada, like benefiting like the city. Like that was incredible. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Like hits home for real. Oh man. Okay. Well, this has been a super great conversation.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, keep hitting me. All
right, because I said earlier, I'm really fascinated by like industry news. You're spending 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday. How did you get into doing Thumbstop? Like when did it come about?
So a lot of like SaaS right now is taken over by these like really young Gen Zs doing outlandish things. And it's like, that's what's helping them go viral. So some version of like a nice launch video and then like a lot of crass that just starts to come out. And then in my world, I was like, I'm not that. Like I'm approaching my mid-30s here. It's like, I don't think I can do that. But I acknowledge that the way that teams go to market is changing. And then I spend a lot of time on social media now just trying to like study Gen Zs. Like it's weird to say, but like study them at that point. And one of the things I always got fed clips of were just different streams. So it's like Kai Cenat or like people like that. And I'm like, this is kind of interesting. Like it seems cool. So the thought inception for me was just like trying to embody that version of going live, having conversations, not just about work, but just like anything at that point. And around the same time, TBPN started taking off. Have you seen some of the stuff that they have going on?
Of course. Jordy used to work at Ridge.
Damn, that's crazy.
That's good lore. Yeah,
man, that's crazy lore. What the hell?
That's
insane. So you know exactly what they have going on. Like crush it.
TVPN's the most interesting like media entity right now, by far and away.
Yeah. There's so much chatter about like, is Twitter just gonna like acquire them or do their own version of it at that point, which would be insane. But for me, when I started it, it was mainly just like a test to be like, what is this going to be? Could this be cool? And then as I started having conversation and I had to do it daily, I started noticing that all the conversations gravitated towards more of the personal stuff than anything before, because I genuinely like to talk about it and I'm trying to learn through this process. So honestly, what it turned into for me was like, as I've been saying, it's like a love letter to DC. It's like everyone you know in this community, like just get a chance to hear from them and like how they're actually thinking. Because as much as we're wild on Twitter and just throw outlandish things out there, most people are great people and like amazing humans. It's like, let's hear that version of these folks. So that's what it's turned into, in all honesty. And then now I just have like a shit ton of content for clipping. So then we can go crazy with clips. And then I'm good for years at this point.
And that's the common thread between like a iShowSpeed and a TVPN, right? Is like they're just creating, I mean, TVPN's creating like 20 hours of content a week, basically. Yeah. And then they're just clipping it down. I don't know how much, I don't know how often iShowSpeed is live, but it's like, that feels like the game right now. Massive content creation. You get the clips and then you're getting distribution that way.
Yeah, I don't think I'm doing it the best way, but I'm just like putting one foot in front of the other. But I think like a lot of brands can, like, whether you're working directly with a streamer, like you felt the benefits of like the consecration side, obviously, but it's just like working directly with a streamer or someone has an in-house streamer. I'm like, this is going to be a thing. Like, this is going to be the way that people consume media. Like all the young kids are growing up consuming this way. It's probably not going to change. It's kind of how I see it, as they get a lot more like purchasing power as they enter the workforce and like their own careers.
Have you seen the Cozy Earth Bedrot Challenge?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Did you listen to the Marketing Operators pod on it?
It's so I have it saved. I haven't listened to it yet, but
you got
I got to check
it out. Because they're that's why I like it so much. You and I are so on the same page here, because it's like that feels like the most modern form of content creation and consumption. And I think Cozy Earth is maybe like the best brand example of doing that, because it's super brand forward. Like it'd be really easy, and like we've sponsored long streams of other people, and it's like we can have like a small presence there, but that's not Ridge creating content. This is like Cozy Earth creating content. And I think it was last night they had 6,000 concurrent viewers on TikTok, as they were like, this is their third. It's also insane because they're spending so much time on this, which I think is like, I don't know how it will pencil out long term, but this is their third time. It's getting bigger and better, and they're in the middle of one now. And I mean, George talked about it on our pod, but like they drove almost 100 million views. They had, you'll love this also, because this is a sort of like nuance that I think we'll miss sometimes. We'll just like, marketers on Twitter will just talk about impressions, or we'll just talk about CPM or whatever. Their average watch time on TikTok was like 22 minutes or something. And I'm like, dude, that is like, oh my God, that's insane. The amount of time that someone has spent with your brand is just like, dude, I'm trying to think, like, there are so few people who have spent 22 minutes watching Ridge content this year. Yeah. And like they did it for millions of people in like a 6-day period, like a couple weeks ago. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, it's such an interesting time, because I was talking to Shireen from Ilya about this, but it's just this idea of like a viral organic creator. So it's not in the sense of just like working with a creator network, but it's like knowing people who get organic social, because I've started to find that people who speak in ads, it's not as easy to move to a cultural shift of just like, hey, knowing what trend is going to move it at the top of funnel than anything, and like accessing brand new audiences in this play. Like it's hard. Like I'm trying to do it now, and I'm finding it super challenging at this point.
No, but when you said that, I was like, you're perfect for that, dude. You'd absolutely crush an Instagram live or something. You're my favorite person to talk to in these like long form contexts.
I appreciate it, man. You do a much better job of me at hosting. Whenever I see the pod, like when you got those big names, I'm just like, yo, this guy has it. I can be more friendly or some shit, but it's just like combine that with the technical. I'm like, okay, killer at that point.
Well, I appreciate that. All right, man. Well, look, I'll jump. Thanks for having me on. This was
I appreciate the time. I have one final question for you. I ask everybody who comes up here. Sorry, I can't let you run without asking. You might not have an answer, which is all good. Just toss it to me. I've got your back. Okay. The question I ask everybody, because I'm trying to create some master clip at the end of this, is I'm wondering, Do you have a favorite quote? And if so, what is it and why?
All right, I have one that came to mind. I think it's an okay answer. To be candid, it's not like, oh my god, this is my favorite like quote. I've got it off the dome here. I heard it in high school. I forget where it came from, but it was, and I don't even remember it exactly. But it was very influential for me, and it was about someone said, "My comfort became my greatest burden," and I was like, "Ooh, that's pretty cool," because I think that's something I just got to remember.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I know what you mean. I have so many that evolve with my own seasons of life. And the one that I'm going with right now is a Derek Jeter quote.
Okay.
And his is, preparation builds poise, poise builds confidence, confidence changes everything. So it's just like the consistent reminder of just like, you got to put the work in no matter what, but you also have to make sure you get the reps in because you're not going to be amazing immediately, but you're searching for that confident level and just the swagger you need to take over.
For sure. I love it.
Connor, I appreciate you, man. You're the best. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Enjoy. I hope the move is safe. I hope it's a good one. Get back to the good weather.
Thank you.
But I'm talking to you soon.
Yeah, for sure. All right, later.
All right, take care. Later. Man, everyone, having Connor up here is incredible. I'm so grateful for his time. I haven't done one of these in a while, so I feel like I'm rusty as I'm talking through it. In all honesty, I'm just like, okay, what are we trying to talk about again? So I appreciate Connor for going through the slog with me. Now, Connor is a really interesting person because one of the things that I often reference is this idea of the mind maze. So what the mind maze is to me, it's like when you aren't sure of what an answer might be, what happens is you kind of need your own process to try and find your way to clarity. And the interesting thing about the mind maze is a lot of people will say, hey, you're wishy-washy, you're changing your opinion, you're rocking the boat too much. But I actually love it when people are open to share how they get to that state of clarity. So you saw Connor a bunch in that conversation talk a ton just about like, hey, so my opinion of being able to achieve like my goal of playing piano is like going to be, I will take a course and that's how I'm going to learn. Wait, that's not actually what I'm going to do. I'm not going to take a course. I'm actually going to watch YouTube. So it's like, we got to watch Connor in real time go through a mind maze so he could try to find the answer in the best way possible. And that part is something like I'm super appreciative of, right? Like when we see Connor on the Marketing Operators podcast, it's usually something that's buttoned up, polished, but being able to see the way that Connor thinks is something that I'm so grateful for. So like, he's the man for being able to join us. But everybody, if this is your first time here, we're starting to see that view count jump. What I do say is in between speakers, I always want to tell you all, stand up. We can't be sitting down. We got to bring the energy. Your back's going to get stiff. It's going to hurt. Your legs are going to be sore. So if you have the ability and you have the privilege of being able to, I will say, please, please, please stand on up with me, okay? Thanks, y'all. And I'm also going to turn some lights on here. My camera isn't treating me the way that I'd like it. But y'all, if this is your first time to the party, welcome to the party. This is Thumbstop Live. We are live every Monday to Friday from 11 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern. And this week is going to be a good freaking week. We just had Connor MacDonald from the Marketing Operators from Ridge just come up and talk all about his own experiences that he's been able to shape in his 9 years at Ridge into his current role. And the next person that we're going to have up here, I feel like I'm so blessed. I have the privilege of having Taylor here. Taylor is someone that not only has built the best alumni possible in the freaking game, but he's also someone that's influenced probably everyone in our space. And how many people can say that? I just got the chills saying that, first of all. So everyone, we are so lucky to be joined by Taylor Holiday. So without further ado, would love to welcome to the stage, okay?
What's up, man? How you doing, dude?
Welcome to the party. I'm good, man. I cannot
love the
complain.
energy you're bringing every day, bro. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. No, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time today. It means a lot. It means a ton to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How's your day going?
Well, I'm earlier than you. You're East Coast, right?
Yeah, 9 a.m. your time?
Yeah, so, it's Monday. Got the kids off to school. Got to go on a run with the dog. Now I'm in the office. So far, good start. Haven't screwed up the week yet.
Not yet. We still got time. Q4. I'm there with you. with you.
Yep.
Taylor, there's so much that I want to get into with you. But before I start slamming you with different questions, I don't know how this is possible, but for the folks who might not be as familiar with you, can we just start with a quick, tell us about yourself, a little bit of personal, a little bit of business, whatever you're open to share, and we'll take from there.
Absolutely. So I'm Taylor. I'm the founder, CEO of Common Thread Collective. So we're an e-commerce growth agency that's been servicing this community for about 12 years now. So I'm one of the old heads in the space. We work in helping our customers produce predictable, profitable growth. So it's really a lot of our specialty sits at the overlap of marketing and finance, which is where a lot of my content will sit as well. Besides that, I'm a baseball coach to my twin 11-year-old boys and a big fan of my 8-year-old dancing daughter. My wife and I's 15-year anniversaries this weekend. That's a fun fact. So that's a little bit about me as well.
So many congrats in there, man. Oh my gosh, 15 years, incredible. This is amazing. This is amazing. Big celebration time. And what type of dance does your daughter do?
Man, the thing about dance, here's a secret. I don't know if there's any dance moms and dads out there, but they work 100x harder than the boys in any sports. It's literally every day, all day. She's at lyrical dance and musical theater and jazz and tap and ballet and hip hop. And it is crazy how much effort goes into dance. That's the real athletes, let me tell you.
Yeah, my wife grew up dancing ballet, and she would tell me about the struggle.
That's crazy. Yeah,
have comparison. I'm just like, damn, it sounds way harder what you do.
It's gnarly, man. Like, it's funny. We joke about this as our little league baseball coaches. Of like, we have 2-hour practices a week, and it feels like, man, are we pushing these kids too hard? And those girls are in there at 2+ hours every day of the week, 7 days a week. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. They go hard.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Oh man, Taylor, this honestly, I'm starting deep immediately because I think it like leads itself nicely into here. But one of the things that I'm often curious about here is like, you have kids now. The concept of work in your passion, find your passion, follow your passion. I'm wondering if you believe that to be good advice now that you're a parent, and honestly, with like your own baseball career that you had growing up.
Yeah, fashion's such a funny thing. I find it to be a fickle mistress, a little bit, in that like my passions change a lot. I've changed so much as a person over time, and finding what purpose work serves in my life has been a journey. I think it's been different in different phases. You know, I'll give you an example of a huge distinction in what work has offered me is that in the pre-COVID era, we were a very geocentric company. We had offices in LA and New York, and the office experience was really the social fabric of my life. Like my friends and people and family were all physically present in that experience. And so it offered me something deeply meaningful in that way. And then when COVID happened, we went remote and that all went away. And all of a sudden I went, well, what does this thing offer me if not that? And it had to change its place in my life. And so I think this is pretty normal. We change as people. You get married, you have kids, you move, you go through different struggles and triumphs. And I think at different moments, passion wanes, and there's moments where I feel deeply passionate about what I'm doing, and then other times where I don't. And I don't know that work should exclusively serve your passion. Like I don't know. Your passion can be expressed in so many different ways. Work is a very like fundamental purpose to help you drive like financial stability in your life more and more. As I think as it's like an old person thing to say, but so I would just say it's changed. And there are moments where passion ignites curiosity and explores and takes you to places that are new and exciting for sure. But it's just not a perpetually present idea. Like you're not passionate every moment of every day. And so I think there has to be something deeper that's also present that moves you through your work, I would say.
It makes so much sense. And one of the examples that I'm curious to get your take on, honestly. So I grew up playing basketball pretty competitively up until my first year of college, but like I'm 6'1" on a good day, super skinny. Like I'm not doing this thing. Right. And at that point it became like an identity question. It's like, if I don't have basketball, what am I? Because I think like passion usually gets attached to a domain or something tangible at that point. And then what I've realized over the years, it's like when I unpack, well, what did I like about basketball? It started to turn into things like competitive environments, teamwork, getting better every day, challenging problems, stuff along those lines. And what I've realized is like, hey, I can do this in whatever I start to tackle. It's not limited to this one domain of basketball as I might consider it. So I'm curious in your world, if that's something that resonates, and if you have through lines that you found to be like, well, I can always come back to that to be able to be a source of energy for me.
Yeah, I think there are definitely some of the things that you mentioned that I look at as values or traits that I can carry with
Hmm.
me. But I would actually say I have never actually been able to replicate the sports environment. I think it's really unique. I think sports is a really unique expression of the things you described: teamwork, hard work, personal development, where it's like so obvious. One of the things that's beautiful about it, it's that the performance is very objective, where like you succeeded or you failed. You know, if you had 10 points or if you went 3 for 30 from the field, there's this beautiful objective feedback about your own performance built into it that forces you into this constant sense of evaluation and improvement without this like subjective interpretation. What I found in work is that it's way more ambiguous than that often, whether or not you're
Uh,
succeeding or failing. And so I've like craved these scoreboards. I think that's one thing that it built into the sports was like I was always looking for this signal. Like, am I doing the right thing? Am I succeeding or failing? And it's a lot harder to interpret in the business world. For me, it has been for a long time. And so I think that was one of the things I found challenging. But those things that you described, and I think about this now with my kids, like because similar to you, I'm not a huge guy. I got a lot out of my 5'9" frame to get as far as I did, but eventually I realized like there was a ceiling to this. And I'm experiencing this a little with my kids right now, where it's like they're not the most physically imposing kids. So what role does sports serve if not to offer them a career? Well, I think the things you're describing are those attributes that I want them to learn, which is hard work pays off, practice equals improvement. If you work hard, you can gain benefit in the outcome. Teamwork, dealing with failure, the adversity of those things. So there's definitely lessons that I think athletes are naturally have experienced a lot of that I watch some people really struggle to sort through if they haven't had those kinds of environments.
I can't wait to have kids at some point in my life because I
Yeah.
would love to like coach their whatever team it might be or be involved at some point. Like it sounds like hear you talk about it and like you light up. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Man. It's so
It really
freaking
is like, and it's such a different thing than being a player too.
Mhm.
I was a really bad coach when I started. I think I'm medium at it now, but I'm trying, but it feels like a new craft to learn because especially kids, like to communicate to them in a way that they actually can respond to is so different than speaking to adults. Their brains and bodies aren't connected. You can't say things that are about how they move physiologically. You have to. So I think I've had some awesome people that I've learned from and tried to grow, but it's a fun challenge because it's a new way to experience the sport that you've played your whole life. And it's hard because you can't actually affect it. Like you can't directly go in and get a hit, throw a strike, whatever. And so you have to work through people, which I think is similar in some ways to leadership inside of a corporate setting, which
Yeah,
is that you eventually have to work through people. So I think they're good disciplines to try and tie together at some point.
100%. And at least from the outside looking in, when I see your tweets or see any of the interviews that you do, I think one of the things that I quite admire that you're able to do is like get to clarity pretty quickly. Because once you have clarity, then it leads to easier communication because like at least that thought's not going anywhere. And I think that's helpful in both domains, like you described. So it's like when working
That's
with
right.
kids, like, what do I really want and be able to communicate? Same with adults in that
That's right.
process. So I'm wondering if you have like, well, go ahead, but I'm wondering about the frameworks of clarity of just like, how do you get to that point?
Yeah. So there's two things I've learned through a lot of messing it up. One is that you have to simplify what you're saying. It makes sense in your head, but other people don't understand. And so you have to strip it down and 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 strip it down, get simpler and simpler and simpler over and over. And that's actually like what great communicating is. It's taking complex ideas and being able to express them simply. And then the second thing I've learned is that you aren't saying it enough. Like that until you are exhausted of hearing yourself say something, other people don't understand yet. And and this is true. I think this is a good lesson for people creating social content too, or even for you as you're doing this thing, is that like most people won't have watched any of it. So you can repeat stuff over and over and over and over and over again, and it'll be the first time people are experiencing it. So sometimes I get this fatigue of like, oh, I have to come up with another thing to say. And then I'm just like, no, I can just go back and say that thing people like 2 years ago. Nobody remembers. Nobody actually attributes it to you. And the same thing is true inside of a company, is that I will think that I have told the company something, that I have set the vision or given people an idea, and I think I've been clear, and I feel like I've said it 1,000 times, and there's still people that are like, "Wait, what? We're doing what?" And you're like, "Oh my gosh, how is that possible?" But the reality is that like you might be living in your head thinking about it constantly, but most people aren't, and so you have to say it 1,000 times more than you ever thought. And the same thing is true for coaching kids, is that you don't get to teach them very many things. This is like you have to pick a few things and say them over and over and over and over again to get adoption around an idea. It's actually really hard.
This is insane. It makes so much sense of being able to repeat it. I guess like the one part for the double click for me is once you have clarity, it's then being able to repeat it a lot so you can bring people along the journey. But the thing that I am curious about is like to get to the place of clarity. Because I think you make it look easy. You probably do it in seconds and you're there. But there's the concept of like the mind maze to find clarity.
Totally. Yeah.
So I'm curious about like how you go through like tackling problems so you can get through a place to be like, I'm clear, this is my opinion.
It's a great question. So one of the things I think that is advantageous to the environment that I've lived in, I think we're all sort of like just like evolutionarily outputs of the environments we put ourselves in, is that we exist in a world as an agency for 10 years or 12 years where we've had to look at thousands of permutations of the same kind of problem, right? So it's like we're trying to solve for e-commerce businesses, and we encounter all these novel businesses all the time. And what we're trying to do is figure out ways to approach them, novel problems, but with a common framework, right? And so the question of when a business comes in, what do you look at and why? The repetition of trying to figure that out leads to a set of patterns, right? They're not answers. You're not looking for specific answers, but you're looking through a series of consistent questions. And so I think that's what frameworks really are. They're approaches to problem solving. They're not solutions, right? And so I think that when you have to solve thousands of different problems, you need those things. They become the trellis on which you build your interaction with the world, right? And so by staying in the same arena for a very long period of time, encountering tons of permutations of problems, you're almost forced to do these things to adapt and solve for it, right? Especially as you scale and you want to teach more people ideas. And so I think it's a natural output of putting yourself into that environment. And then I think there's probably some like way in which my brain is like, it's like the problems I like. It's like big sets of information condensed down and analyze and solve them. That's like what I find joy in. So it doesn't exhaust me to do that. I move towards the problem and it's life-giving. And so I think you combine that sort of natural predisposition towards wanting to solve those kinds of problems with a really great environment for tons of them. It leads to that kind of thinking where you develop these frameworks to teach people how to solve all these problems.
I love that. And if you don't mind me asking, I'm wondering if it's actually equivalent to your kiddos, like these problems that come up.
Well, totally. Like, and the parenting is another great example where we're all trying to like learn from. There's been billions of children that have existed in the world before us, right? And so we're trying to grab onto what can we learn from to apply into this novel child, because each child is its own unique character in the same way that each business has its own unique traits. But there's lessons that we can learn and frameworks that we can apply to their development and to think about and learn from. And so, yeah, they are these like really interesting things where one of the conversations that happens a lot on social that I find pretty reductive and not that useful is this idea where people just say like, every business is its own individual problem set, and therefore there are no best practices. There's nothing useful you could ever learn or apply. You must treat them all individually. And while I understand the point, and there is truth to the idea that everything is novel, to reject the idea that there's any wisdom to be gleaned or any possible way in which, not that we could duplicate the same answer, but that something about the process that they went through for discovering the solution couldn't be replicated, I think is just a waste of thousands of years of knowledge. And so I think, I agree. It is the same kind of approach to parenting, which is that what have I watched or learned or been able to see people apply and not assume that the exact outcome will be the same for my child, but to replicate the framework for approaching the problem, to learn, iterate, and improve.
I feel like that's the part that I'm quite excited about, like being a father one day. Like it's just like it's a new problem to solve in a sense, but it's also just like so personal. And it's like,
that's right. Well, and take twins. Like I have twins, right?
Oh, you have twins.
Yeah. So imagine it's like an A/B test, right? Like they show up and there's two of them at the exact same time in the exact same environment, yielding wildly different outcomes, right? And so that is in and of itself this thing that my wife and I will often reflect on is like very freeing because we recognize that there's some real nature here. Like it's not totally about us, that there's something about their unique DNA and makeup that make them unique to who they are, that we have a job to steward and foster, but like there's something about them that is truly unique. And so that's the novelty of it. Now, within the context of that, they both need to sleep 9 hours or 10 hours at night and develop and grow, and they need to eat healthy food, and reading is good for them. And like that's true, regardless of the fact that they're unique. And so you're trying to balance that, understanding the uniqueness of who you are with the general principles of what it means to be a human being and how to grow as a child.
Oh my goodness. Oh my, are there twins in your family? Like, is it like your parents or one of your parents or your wife, one of her parents?
We don't really know. My wife's dad was adopted, so his family tree is a little bit murkier. So it's kind of hard to know for sure, but it was definitely unexpected, not something that we were thinking was going to happen.
Huge, man. Taylor, there's something interesting in here of when you talked about earlier, when we were talking about passions, it was like how they evolve over time. And one thing that I am thinking about is like as seasons change and those passions evolve. One of the analogies that I've been using for life is like these light bulbs. So it's like one light bulb is career, one is family, friends, wife, mental health, physical health. That list continues for whoever it might be. And I think I'm at the point of I have to evaluate where it's impossible to light all of those things up at any given time with equal power, and they not do it well, essentially. So I'm curious how you think about like distributing your energy to the different areas of your life at this point.
Yeah, we call this, we use a very similar metaphor at CTC. We call it the 4-burner problem. So imagine a stovetop, 4 burners. You can't turn them all the way to high all the time, right? And so you have to have this balance. But so I think that there are absolutely seasons where you have to make very conscious allocations of your time and energy. And time is an easy one. Money is an easy one because we understand the finite nature of that. They're numerical in their evaluation. Like people tend to understand that. The one that I have found harder is actually my emotional availability. That one is the one that I've had to learn how to protect and allocate more effectively, especially for my family, where I noticed for a long time in my life that a lot of my emotional availability was tied up in my work, and I would come home and I didn't have anything to offer in that space. So I absolutely agree that in each of those, now what I'll say is that they are pools that can be grown. So like in the same way your physical capacity can grow, your emotional capacity can grow. Your mental capacity can grow. And so I think sometimes the only challenge I have with people when they talk about balance is they may be neglecting the opportunity to ask, could I grow my capacity to offer more without having to see everything as a zero-sum game right away? And so I think that both are true, is that yes, at any given time, we have some finite amount of capacity in all those areas. And it's true that I can grow my capacity to be able to offer more still at the same time.
I love that. It's just acknowledging like we get better. Like as humans, we're capable of a lot. Like, and like sometimes we can forget it and just be like, it's painful, give up to it. Everyone talks about that version, but it's like, I like the positive version of like, we are capable of a lot, way more than we realize. How do we make that happen?
That's one of the things in businesses too. I try to tell leaders a lot is that your job, how far you'll go as a leader will be determined almost exclusively by your emotional capacity to handle problems. Because over and over again, the more people are in your company, all you've invited is more problems. And at some point, the point at which you get overwhelmed by the problem set is your ceiling. And that's just different for everybody. And it's why, like, sometimes I think we look at people who run, like the president of the United States or whatever. And I don't mean the specific president. I'm just saying that role, and go like, the amount of problems they must encounter is insane and overwhelming. And it's true. You couldn't possibly assign your emotional well-being to all of those problems, right? And so it can come off as indifference, like you don't care, but that's not what's happening. It's this understanding that the purview of my problem set is so wide that if I took all of my emotional well-being and I handed it to each individual problem, I would collapse, I would break, and I wouldn't be effective at all. And so I think that's one of the things that I had to recognize, that people started to experience me as, in some ways, like I didn't care. And I was like, why is that happening? That's not actually my feeling, but it's because I was spread out. Like you just get spread out across a lot of these things. And so I think there's a learning there about how to hold that many different problems inside of a growing organization and look at it and go like, I'm okay. I can actually handle this amount of chaos, because it gets really messy sometimes.
Yeah. How would you say that you've been able to like increase your capacity quickly? Because I think over long periods of time makes sense if you can reflect back, but it's another thing to make it happen fast.
So I don't know that I did do it fast. I don't know that I think it was one, but the biggest gap was that I had to narrow the circle of who I let really have a deep opinion about Taylor that would affect me. So the reality is that a lot of people have an experience of me and they're entitled to it. And it's not about whether they're right or wrong. That's their experience of me. And sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's positive. The question is, whose opinion will I let affect me? And so for a while, that was like everyone. I was like, any input, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go correct that feeling about me. I have to go make sure that everybody thinks I'm good. And then you just sort of realize at some point, like, that's impossible. And instead, like, if I narrow the circle to the people I am closest and caring the most about, I will value and work very hard to ensure that I'm in right relationship with them. But you can't let that circle get very wide, or eventually you're running around just being batted around by everybody's individual opinion of you. And it's really, really challenging. So I think letting go of some of that, which was hard. Like I look, Twitter's the perfect example of this. Like, if every person who thought negatively of you on Twitter, you ran around and tried to correct their opinion of you, you would just spend your whole day chasing a bunch of bots and ghosts, right? Like, it's just, and so you have to be careful about how far you go down that road and whose opinion you really let drive your well-being.
There's something in here about remembering. It's kind of cheesy in my mind, but it's like, be kind to yourself. It's like you're trying to be kind to others and being able to say, like, let me correct your opinion of me. But like, you have to remember, it's like, start with yourself. Like, how can we be nice? How can I give myself grace in this period?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, totally.
In your process, I think what I'm curious about is, like, especially on the like the emotional front and the emotional availability side, it's like, do you have anything that grounds you, that can like bring you back to the present moment pretty easily?
It's a good question. I don't know that there's any like specific action that I take. One of the things I try to do is that when problems do get too big, one of the things I've gotten really good at is I release the big problem and I break it down to, like, what is the next right action I can take. And so anytime I experience somebody telling me that they've got a lot going on, I go, okay, let's break it all down. And what could I do in the next 30 minutes? Like, what's the right next step? And I think I've become very present in understanding that, like, you can't solve everything in this moment. It's sort of like the old cliche in sports. It's like, if you're down a bunch, like, you got to get the next run. Let's get a run this inning. Let's chip away. Like, or you're down 20 in basketball. Okay, let's score on this possession, right? And you can't get it all back at once. And so I think there's something about that has always brought me back to, like, okay, we've got a $400,000 revenue gap for the next quarter. Okay, what's the next action we could take? Let's break it all down. And that gives me a feeling like, okay, I'm back in control. Even though the issue is still really big and out there, I know the best next action to take. And that's sort of the thing I always try and get back to when I feel overwhelmed.
Huge. One of the other things that I'm so curious about, how you plan your life around this, are goals. So there's one sense of the business, which I think I know that you're a super regimented person and like making sure it comes to life. But really what I'm curious about is, like, on the personal side. Like, are you sitting down at the beginning of the year and being like, these are my goals in my personal life of what I want to do in this year that works back into quarters, months, days? Or do you vibe it out a little bit?
Yeah. So we're live here. I'll just go. So for a long time, I was a religious person. And in that world, it creates a specific framework for goals that I think, like, gives you a set of things to do. And then I left that part of my life, and it created this void of, like, all right, well, what do I exist to do, and what do I want out of life? And so I came up with these sort of 3 goals that are longer term. They're not like on an annual calendar necessarily, that allows me to build a framework for all the decisions in my life. So it was, I want to die married to my wife. I want to be best friends with my adult children. And I wanted to be post-economic by the time I was 40, which means, like, I didn't have to work. And so that became a very clear hierarchic decision-making framework for me. Like, again, you'll notice this is like how I think about most things, is that, okay, so if I'm choosing between going to my friend Ryan's birthday party and my daughter's recital, that gives you a framework to make that decision, right? Because in the moment, I might really want to go over there, but if I don't have that clearer hierarchic decision-making, it helps me to decide that. And so those 3 things have been governors that have really been important for me to think about how to organize my day and my time, and myself. And so those would be big picture. Now, within the context of that, I can break that down into shorter term goals of like, okay, what would we need to do to accomplish X, Y, and Z? But I'd say those big three things are really like stones that I can build a lot of my
I freaking love that so much, so much. And I'm thinking for anyone who's younger, who's tuning in, what with this question. So with those three pillars, like that's so well articulated, it gives you the framework you need to prioritize. Have you always been able to articulate those three that well, or did it evolve over time to get to that clarity?
No, that's more. I'd say again, when religion exists,
Yeah.
one of the things that religion offers people is a very
Yeah.
clear framework for why you live. Here are the rules of life. Here's the goal of life. Here's the purpose. And so I think in some ways that's why it's evolved, is because it's really good at that. It gives people that structure. And so I think for a long time that probably governed a lot more of my ideology and thinking, was around trying to facilitate that outcome. So I think that it was in the absence of that it actually created space that I now deeply appreciate, which is, what do I actually want? Because I think a lot of that was sort of handed to me in where I grew up. And so now I got to ask it for myself and say, okay, well, what do you really want? And then the other thing I feel a lot of freedom, Evan, is like, I'll change my mind if I want. It's up to me. Like, I could change the rules of my own game, And so if I don't want those three anymore, I'm allowed to change them. And so, so that's where I'm at right now, and I feel great about it. And so far, it's been a really productive, useful set of goals for me. But again, I feel freedom that if something were to change,
I love it, man. This makes me think of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like when you're able to get to this top of self-actualization, it's like you remove all of the clutter of what do people think of me, what does the world want of me, and it's like all becomes self, and like in that whole equation. And this is perfect. Like this is so.
And so in the process of it becoming self, what you sort of learn though is that the output, like self alone, is insufficient. And so if I think about why is my goal, did I marry my wife or my adult? Because those relationships are so important, so valuable to me. They offer me so much that like the mutual exchange, the reciprocity of those things are actually like the critical tentpole of my life, that like without them, I don't want to go off and be by myself, So I think that is the sort of the beauty of the ascension of that hierarchy, is that you discover then that the offering back out is the key to it, is that like those relationships produce this like very fruitful experience of humanity. We really got off of creative
man.
Where we
I love this. I love this. This is the stuff that, because it's just like I'm also entering a different season of life, if we call it. So it's like I'm super lucky to have conversations with people like yourself and be able to have this type of dialogue. So it's like, selfishly speaking. And then whenever I get my DMs, people are like, holy crap, like what the hell? I didn't know this person was like this. So it's like super cool to shed light on different areas.
Okay, good.
But Taylor, one thing I am thinking about here is just like entrepreneurship. Have you always been like an entrepreneur in your soul, and you could track that back to when you were a kid?
No, I didn't have a concept of it. Like so I think what I'll say is, being an athlete in some ways is much more entrepreneurial than people realize, even though within the context of a team, is that you are your own business. Like your body, your performance is very individual and entrepreneurial in the sense that like you succeed, you get to keep going. You succeed, you get to keep going. And there's these people that try and help you and guide you along the way. But at the end of the day, you have to win the game for yourself. And so I think there's something about that experience that made sense to me, which is that like, I like the idea that it's like, there's a meritocratic environment where if I work really hard and try, that I could be rewarded for that effort. And if I beat all the other people, then I get to reap the benefit, right? Like there's something about that construct that I think does overlap with entrepreneurship a lot. Now, specifically the business world, I got lucky in that like when I was released from my baseball career, I happened into an environment where someone was building a business, and I got to see that play out. And it sort of awakened in me this idea of like, oh, this could be my thing. But prior to that, I thought I was going to go to law school. And like, I was on a very sort of more traditional route. I didn't have ambition towards the idea of starting a business. That was never a thought until I found myself in that environment. And I would just say that the other thing is that like, I really struggle in like a structured corporate setting. I was not a great employee because the boundaries all felt weird to me. I didn't understand the rules of the game that well. And I didn't understand why like nobody went above and beyond. But, and there's this like tension between, I work and you pay me, and I don't work more than you pay me, which is like a fair exchange, right? And this idea that like, no, I would always want to do more than everybody else so that I could move up. And there's like, as an athlete, there was never this sense by which like, oh, I'm making this much money that now, so therefore I only work this amount. It was always like you're trying to strive to the next rung or whatever. And so some of that, like, it was weird to me to sort through in a corporate context. And I struggled with authority. I don't know. I had a lot of challenges, but as a young person that I look back on and go, man, I was pretty immature. But yeah, so I think some of that was like the sports experience led me this way. I got really lucky to be in an environment where I watched it play out, and then sort of wanting to just be in control for myself and the opportunity were the things that probably contributed to getting there.
Been talking a lot to other folks, and they not everybody references them, but like a lot of people reference like mentors and mentorships and the roles that they played in their lives. So I'm curious, like in your early days as you were navigating like what to do next, essentially after baseball, it's like, did you seek out mentors or like have any mentors that helped like basically inform what you should do next?
I think what I would more point to is people that gave me space and trust that was greater than what I deserved. So if I think about the first job that I had, like my resume didn't warrant the job that I was given. So my partner, Josh, who's still a business partner at CTC, like he and his brother were starting a company and they gave me space and responsibility that I didn't deserve and trusted me. And that gave me opportunity to grow and learn. And I'd like to say I rewarded that trust with good performance. And then from there, I got to go to I left and joined the agency that I had hired. And so a guy by the name of Zubin Malavi, who now works at VaynerMedia, same thing. Like he gave me trust that was unwarranted in some ways. That was like, I believe in you. I believe in your capacity. And so I'm going to give you authority and responsibility that's beyond what your resume might have earned you so far. And so those people, I owe a lot to their belief in me, that gave me belief in myself, that gave me an arena to learn and grow and a sandbox to play in. And so it wasn't they were like guiding, saying, you should go do this, Taylor. Is that they were literally allowing me to participate in the things that they had built and trusting me to contribute to it positively. And that made me want to, like, I wanted to reward their trust, right? Like it gave me the sense that like, oh, you gave me opportunity. I feel like I have an obligation to that. And so I think those are a couple of people that stand out to me as early on in my career, giving me unwarranted trust, and then feeling like I really want to repay that with good work.
Dude, sports, because for me, like sports has given me a lot of loyalty and like how important that is. And I feel like what you're describing there of like the people who gave you a stage, but then also making sure that you want to repay them speaks to that loyalty piece. So there is something in there, like as it speaks to more athletes of like the through line.
Well, so that word is a little loaded for me, because so I'd like to believe they actually did it in rational self-interest, which is they saw that I was talented and smart and capable, and so they said, "All right, I'll give this person a shot." It's like a young prospect that you're saying, maybe you don't have the proof yet in your career, but I think there's potential here. And I actually don't think they would have done it if they thought I wasn't going to be successful. And so this is actually really important, I think, is that loyalty I've seen as a phrase get used the second someone, it's very close to entitlement to me, where I actually think that business is a very unique relationship, which is built entirely on mutual benefit. And that the second that stops, we should actually consider whether or not we proceed forward together, and that both parties should live under that tension. And because I think that loyalty, like I owe my wife loyalty. I've made a promise to her that is actually different than this, which is to say that absent, even if one of us is overperforming the other, we're actually committed to continuing. My children, I owe them unconditional love. That is, says, even if they're bad children, I'm going to remain their father. I think a work relationship is very different, and I think it should be. And it actually demands that both sides constantly are leveling up to meet each other. And the second that one stops contributing at that level, I think that you should reconsider the relationship. Now, there can be opportunity for one party to say, hey, I'm in a moment right now where I need some space, and their proof over a long period of time would grant them what some might call loyalty or opportunity. I agree with that. But at the end of the day, if they don't find a way back to that level of impact, I think it's both parties should definitely consider whether or not they continue forward.
That makes so much sense. I think of like the idea of when you're betting on stocks, it's like, when does someone like hit their potential? And realistically, like if someone's going to keep growing, they won't hit their potential. They'll just grow forever at that point. And it's just a question of how far along that growth curve are they?
And not everybody's ambition is
Yeah.
the same. This is a big thing I've learned too, is that you might end up in a relationship where somebody decides like, hey, I'm good right here. And then the other person's like, no, 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 I'm trying to go up here. And at that point, you are no longer useful to each other. And what may have happened is that for a while you had a shared destination. You had shared ambition. You both wanted, and then you reached that spot, and one person went, I'm good here, and the other person went, no, 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 I'm trying to keep going. And that happens all the time. So as business partners, over the course of a decade, here's what you should absolutely assume that all of you will change. That your desires will change, your needs will change, your capacities will change. And so therefore, reevaluating that all along the way is reasonable, and it should be expected. And so I think that it's just like, we should always check in on, are we serving each other in this goal of destination of where we're headed? And that if not, one of you should be able to say to the other, hey, I need more from you, or I'm not getting what I need out of this relationship. And the other person should either try and meet them in that, or say, you're right, I don't have the capacity right now, or I'm looking to step out. But it's really important that you're around people that are pushing you forward towards your desired end game, and that both people are living up to the standard of what you want. Otherwise, it becomes very frustrating.
It's such a good point, because I think like when I used the word loyalty earlier, what I'm trying to understand, because like even in sports, right? Like the GMs will make decisions that don't follow that. So it's like, it's definitely not that. It's definitely not that. Maybe the right word is just like the highest level of camaraderie possible that's been built, like some version of that. But it's definitely like loyalty. I understood.
Candor, trust, like those things all matter. Like if I feel that about you, I think what I owe you is candor. Like I owe you honesty about my feelings. Hey, I feel let down by you, or hey, I feel like these things are unequally weighted right now, and we're going to come to you and have that conversation. But I don't owe you persistence in that unequally weighted relationship. But I owe you, I think, and where a great relationship is, I owe you honesty and the opportunity to reconcile it and fix it. But I don't owe you consistent participation in a thing that I don't think is helping me.
Taylor, you've been so generous with your time. I have a couple final questions, if that's cool. So the one area that I'm thinking about is I can't have you up here and not talk about hiring. Like hiring, super important, and like especially the alumni you have. Before talking about like how you think about hiring, I just want to know like how you feel about it. So what I'm curious about is like, when you look at the alumni that CTC has created, like, and you look at what's going down, like, how do you feel in your?
I feel like a failure in some ways because I couldn't keep them in my company. I've talked about this more recently. This is a thing I've changed my mind on, is that I think in many ways, my job is to keep talent wanting to participate in the thing that I'm building. And for a lot of those folks, I couldn't at the moment, I didn't have a big enough vision for them to share in it in a way that they felt was consistent with their opportunity and market. And for some of them, it's true. They were right. And others, I think they were wrong. I think they made the wrong calculation. But for some, it was like, the reality is I couldn't compensate them as much as the market could, because the vision I had for the thing wasn't big enough, or my willingness to allow them to participate in the benefit wasn't big enough. So that's the case. But I do think what this environment and me as a person, I think what we tend to attract is like ambitious people who want to learn a lot. And so you get these people whose growth curve is really fast. And that's really what you see, is that a lot of the people that you would reference as alumni that came through here, when they came here, it's not like we hired them out of some high level position. It's that what we recognized in them was like, they were like voracious learners. They were ambitious. They were hungry. And so CTC is a context with lots of data, lots of information, lots of smart people. And if you effort here, your growth will be really fast. And so I think that we had these like attributes that we would call, like, we want people who have high levels of effort and interest, right? So effort meaning like, what's your motor for problem solving? That going back to that thing I talked about, was like, when you encounter problems, do you get excited or do you get fatigued? And then how much do you weirdly love the thing that we do? What's your interest in it? How curious about it are you? And if you can find like those things amongst people with like high levels of general intelligence, you get these like really quick growth curves. And so I think more and more, I've just found that like, if you can sort of suss out those attributes in people, then you'll get a pretty productive person. Now, they're kind of like wild horses, right? You got to figure out how to harness them and keep them growing, because they will consume you and move on if you can't continue to provide them growth. And so there's a challenge in both dynamics where you have to really think through the kind of environment you want to foster and how much energy you have to continue to create that growth and space for them. So hiring, I still don't think I'm good at it, man. I think it's one of the hardest things I'm serious. Like I suck at this. Like it's so hard because I found that like, it's like dating where you just get such a small window into trying to know someone. And it's really hard to actually figure out who they are in a couple of Zoom calls and even like, a dinner. Like it's just really challenging to sort out their character.
Has there been so during the recruitment process, we can talk about like after and keeping people ambitious, but in the recruitment process, is there like a question you have or a through line that you've seen to be like, yep, they got it. Like they are one of those people that I am looking for, like earlier in the career, being able to take off.
I think the best thing you can do is make the interview process take a lot of work. Is that the reality is that like, there's usually people looking for jobs in two different ways. One is I'm looking for a job and I'm currently applying to lots of jobs. And so I'm just kind of looking for the best opportunity that comes my way. I find those people to be like generally less useful in the sense that they're sort of like free agents, which is like I'm just looking for who's going to pay me the most, and I'm talented and I'm good, and that's not bad. And then there are people though that are looking for your job. They want this job. And so what they're willing to do and their effort towards it tends to be higher, and they really deeply care about ensuring that they get this job. And so it's just a general signal that for me tends to be higher, is that we get people that come and they want to be a part of CTC. They're interested in the opportunity, and what they'll do to get it, it tends to mean more to them when they have it. And so that's just one signal that right off the bat, it's like, did you want this job or are you looking for a job? That's hard to do because in the beginning, not a lot of people want your job. So in the beginning, that's harder to get. But that's signal number one. And then two is that, okay, in that process, how hard will they go to get it? And that's little things from like, you had an interview with 4 people. Did you send one group follow-up email or did you send them all individual follow-up emails? Little signals that just tell me like, how hard are you willing to go to make this experience good for me, for you, for other people around you? They're all little signals that you can look for that are important. Now, those can be gamed. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but I think you want honesty and integrity. Like those are like must-haves. Like people just have to be like of high character, and then you want a motor, man, and you want them to really want it. And if you get those things, they tend to do all right.
Have you found that from your hiring preference? Are you leaning towards, like when we talk about that idea of someone with uncapped potential, and it's like, where are they towards realizing that? Have you found that you lean towards like the unproven and like, we'll show you and then you'll grow with us? Or have you found that you're hiring the more established people typically?
I think this is a big change, is that early on, it was definitely the first one. I think this is evolutionary too, like where you develop a bias towards the only thing that you can actually access, which is like when you can't afford to pay people a lot of money, you're like, yeah, we're going to hire new people and develop them as if it's a noble cause when it's really your only choice. And so you build this like narrative for yourself about, yeah, we're going to hire and train and we're going to be really good at that. And that's going to be our unique edge. And it's like, you just don't have money. That's just the truth. And then later on, eventually you're like, oh man, all this hiring and training is exhausting and expensive. And like, then these people leave and it's and so now my thing is like, I just want the freaking best person ever. Like, that's all I want. And if we have to pay them more than everybody else, I'll do it, because great people just create such disproportionate value. But if I'm going to pay you a lot of money, you better be freaking really good, because if you want $300,000 a year, like how much better you have to be than somebody who wants $80,000 a year is like, you better be way, way, way better. And here's one of the big things is that the reality is now we're a global market. We're a global labor force, and people making 80 grand are freaking good, dude. Like they're really, really freaking good and hungry and willing to work really, really hard. So if you want 300, the bar got even higher in terms of the level of impact you have to make, because this kid in Estonia, I'm telling you right now, he'll eat your lunch. Like, and I'm telling you. And so you better be really freaking good. And so that's like a lot of the experience that I'm having in the
That is so real. It's like, hey, noble cause. We got this. And then the evolution is like, no, let's switch it up. The other man.
And that's hard for people because like you want to go through your career and feel like, well, I've made it. Now I'm at a certain level. But dude, when people are coming for you, it's
Yeah,
hard.
for sure. There's probably so much more we could just talk about that. But Taylor, you've been so freaking generous with your time, man. I have one final question that I ask everybody who comes up here on. I'm hoping to clip it together at some point, create some monster one. If you don't have an immediate answer, all good. Throw it to me first. I got your back. The question is I'm wondering, do you have a favorite quote? And if so, what is it and why?
That's a great question. I'm gonna give you a sort of answer. Okay, so I have this book, it sits on my shelf. So anytime anybody asks me for what I think the best book in entrepreneurship is, I think it's this book right here. It's called The Carrot Seed. It's about a little boy. And the story basically goes, I won't read the whole thing, even though it's short. He just says he told his mom he's gonna plant a carrot. And she says, I'm afraid it won't come up. His father said it won't come up. His big brother said it won't come up. Every day, the boy pulled up the seeds around the seed and sprinkled the ground with water, but nothing came up and nothing came up. And everyone kept saying it wouldn't come up, but he still pulled up the weeds around it every day and sprinkled the ground with water. And then one day a carrot came up, just like the little boy always knew it would. And that to me is like the journey, like is that you got to go do a thing and everybody's going to tell you it's probably not going to work. And they're probably right that it's not likely to work, but you show up, you water the ground, you pull up the weeds every single day. And then one day it'll come up just like you always knew it would, because it starts with your own belief. And so don't lose that own belief. Believe in yourself more than anybody else and go water the ground and pull up the weeds every day.
Taylor, that's so good. Gave me goosebumps. Gave me freaking goosebumps. I'm wondering if you have any final words for our audience.
No, man, this is cool. I think it's funny. I wish part of me, if I went back to my early days of starting a business, I would do exactly what you're doing, which is that I think that this live streaming, getting into conversations, being with people every day is the future. I think that we're going to see more and more of this. There's just like an appetite for this kind of content of people just hanging out, interacting. So keep at it, man. I think you're doing good work here.
Taylor, I appreciate you. You're the best. This was incredible. I feel like I have so many damn like notes now that I can take with too. But you're the best, man. I appreciate it. I'm going to talk to you real soon. All right.
All right, buddy.
Okay.
Take care.
Everybody, this has been a great day. This has been a super great day. Getting a chance to hear from like these two freaking legends, like this is like so much fun. I don't know. Are you guys fired up? I feel like I'm fired up right now. Yeah, it's just like Connor's experience, 9 years at Ridge, the grind with Sean through the entire process, and like seeing everything and how it goes. Like, man, can't replace that. And watching Connor go through a new season of life and like being able to tackle other things now is so impressive. And in all honesty, like hearing him say it's actively hard to hand things off and not look at it, resonate with that so much. So it's just like so real in that process. And then ultimately hearing Taylor, like everyone knows Taylor Holiday. Everyone's seen his tweets and everyone see what else going on. But seeing how Taylor has like an operating system to be able to operate life and like just have an opinion. Like, I think that's the part, if I had to guess, that gives him that clarity quickly. He'll run into an instance where it might not be able to become as clear. And it's like, what is the mental model or framework that can help me tackle this situation like this in the future? So even talking about like personally, like what his 3 pillars are, like that stuff makes it so much easier. So holy crap, I'm a little bit overloaded with information. This was like a fire hose day, but everybody, this has been Thumbstop Live today. We are live every Monday to Friday from 11 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern. You saw that we had Connor today from Ridge, and you saw that we had Taylor today. Tomorrow we have Dylan Ander, and then Wednesday we have the one, the only Andrew Ferris as well. And for those of you tuning in, on Thursday we are not live, and the reason for that is because we have the Creative Strategy Summit coming up. So the Creative Strategy Summit, we host this every single year for the last 4 years, and it's basically the pulse of creative strategy. It is a free online event, free. So if you sign up, you will get recordings as well. You'll want to be sure to check this out. We got so many folks who are coming through that day. So it's going to be a really fun and exciting day. And come out, hang out with me in all honesty. I'd love to chill, love to chat, say Thumbstop Live sent you. You know what I'm saying? But everybody, this has been today's episode of Thumbstop Live. I'm greatly appreciative of everyone's eyes and ears. This has been such a fun day. I'm going to catch you on the next one, aka